Well, hello. I am, of course, who I've always been, Frederick Wemyss, and I just recently unearthed a short story that I thought had been missing for years. Well, it was missing from me, but I found it, and I'm going to read it now. I wrote this when I was 13 years old, in the 7th grade, and it's called The Closet Stabber. I called myself Fred Wemyss at the time, which is my name, but now I call myself Frederick Wemyss. So here's The Closet Stabber by Fred Wemyss, written in 1973. I have a very peculiar habit. I stab closets. I'm sure that you must think I'm crazy to say I can stab closets, so let me tell you what I mean. I don't actually stab them. I stab whatever is in them. Now I'll tell you why I do it. 3 years ago I went to visit my uncle for the first time in New York City. The first night I was there he called me away from the television set, I had been watching it for an hour and a half, and inquired about my job. "Oh," I said nervously, because he had bushy eyebrows which frightened me, "I'm a veterinarian in New Jersey." He mumbled a bit. He said something about how vets get no action in life. There was an uneasy silence, and I broke it as best I could. "Which is your, occupation?" I asked very timidly. "What?" he asked. I said, do you have a job?" I felt like a fool once the words came sputtering out of my mouth. It was worded very poorly. "Well, of course I do. I'm a private detective." Now I knew why he mumbled what he did when I told him that I was an animal doctor. His job was full of unwanted excitement. At least I wouldn't want it. "Why, that's very interesting." I now got more courageous in speaking. Unfortunately, the more courageous I got, the more embarrassing the things I said were. "Is it full of thrills, carrying out the cases?" "I suppose you could say that." I now was sure he disliked me. "I have to sneak around a lot." I was about to say, "That's funny, you don't look like the type who'd wear sneakers," but I didn't. It's strange that I was compelled to say these things, because I was a bit frightened of him. Maybe if you're so scared of something or someone, you say things radically different from what you were thinking. Anyway, I decided that that was it, so I still acted fairly odd. "No," he said, as if he were a mind reader, "I don't wear sneakers, although my shoes are padded. They must be comfortable." We then looked more or less in other directions, got ourselves into dazes, and nodded our heads up and down. People do that when there is nothing to do or say. The dazes were interrupted, though, by the television. It hadn't been turned off, which said in a gruff voice, "See, Mannix." My uncle then said, "That's more or less what it's like, except there are no commercials or background music." Apparently he decided to say strange things too. He walked over to it and turned it off in the middle of another ad for Mission Impossible. Then he summoned me to his study, which I noticed as we entered was full of old books, and had one lamp with a dark green shade, so as to add to the scary effect of the room as a whole. I might mention that his whole apartment was part of a very small apartment building, which was made of wood. There were 2 other tenants, not counting the landlord. When we got in, my uncle turned on the lamp and closed the door slowly. "Sit down," he said, and pointed to a wooden chair. Then he himself assumed one, which was behind the desk which was there. I was on the opposite side of it. "Now," he said, lowering his voice, "I want to tell you a bit more about my work." Oh yes, that's it. The strangeness hadn't quite worn off him yet. "Always beware of dangerous people. I've seen many so far. They hide in closets. That's always the best place. Many a murder case that I have taken up has started in a closet. You can be with a few friends when it happens. You open up the closet door to hang their garments up when you are jumped upon. Of course, your friends don't know a thing about it because they're in the kitchen eating up all your pickled bacon rinds." He breathed a short breath here. "Rinds? Well, you can also be very much alone. At least you think so, when you want to hang up a mink coat that came in the mail to the wrong address." He was serious and at the same time sickeningly humoresque. But then he got back to regular standards of communication. "You go to the closet and you are attacked by a figure behind the clothes and hangers. So," he continued, "I feel that you, being a relative of mine," he coughed quietly, "I should tell you the laws of protection, self to be precise. Now when you come home from a day of hard work, always turn on the light. Always have a light." There's an exclamation point in parentheses here. The parenthesized mark only means that he was excited in the middle of his sentence. and go for the first pair of scissors you see, or go for your pair in a drawer. Whatever it is, go for it." He looked at me in a way meant to ask if I followed him so far. I said, "Yes, I follow you, loud and clear." He looked confused, and then scowled in the direction of the floor. Despite this, he continued, "You now have the scissors. You stealthily take off your shoes and quietly walk towards the closet, where an enemy may be awaiting your arrival. It is also smart to go to the closet anyway, if it is winter, because you'll have to hang up your coat. As you open the closet door with your left," he knew this was my unskilled hand, "and with the scissors in your right hand, you plunge into the closet and stab at the clothing, and if necessary the intruder who is in there too. And once you're sure he's dead, call the police. Never just wound him, because once he gets out of jail, he'll put you out of life." At first I thought it would be awkward. That it would be awkward, opening the door with my left hand and going in with my right, but he showed me later that night, and he checked my room, But he showed me later that night, as he checked my room, that it was easy. I spent 2 more days at my uncle's apartment, listening to tales of horror and bragging sessions full of detective happenings, and during this time my uncle actually grew fond of me. He was sad when I had to go. When I got home, I checked my closet, the way he told me to, and I found no killers and or spies. From then on, though, my clothes had dreadful holes in them. I did continue the closet checks because I knew that it didn't matter if I tore my clothes up more, they being ripped since the first inspection. A week after I got home, I went to a party where my friends were. I told them all about stabbing closets and my experiences doing it. They didn't like it at all. They didn't even laugh to say that I was dumb, but forgiven. No, they just looked disgusted and stared at my ripped clothes. I even told them that they were like that because of the inspections, and that I wasn't a slob, but they didn't believe me and threw me out. I was now friendless. I tried to make friends with my customers, but even their pets rejected me, and soon I was out of business. I didn't have enough money to buy an unripped pair of clothes. No charity would accept me as a member. Even dear Aunt Landers canceled me out, and I signed my real name in front of the whole nation, and probably Canada. Everything seemed lost until my uncle called me up. He read Aunt Landers intently, suggested that I move into his apartment building, and that there was a vacant apartment. There had always been one anyway. He was very nice about it, and said that he could pay until I found a job and had enough money. I said that I couldn't thank him more, and the next month I was on my way. When I got there, I knocked on his door, and he answered it, welcomed me inside, and handed me some keys. The landlord gave me them to give to you. It was now that I noticed that his clothes were not ripped like mine. I asked him why. "Oh," he said, "I keep some clothes in my drawers, and this suit is among them." I stayed there until late that night, and then went up to my apartment, which was on the floor just above his. When I went in, I turned on the light, pulled some scissors out of my pocket, and went for the closet. It turned out to be a very clumsy one. Cedar it was, and full of mothballs. I packed the closet up with clothes on that very night, and the next day my furniture came with the moving van. I slept in a sleeping bag the previous night. Every day I visited my uncle, morning to be precise, and then I would be off to seek a job. An example of the mornings is as follows. I woke up, got into my ripped working clothes, and went downstairs to my uncle's apartment. He is always an early riser, so he was up. "Good morning, Uncle," I said. "Buenos. Good morning to you, too. How have you been these fine, frolicking hours?" "Fine, but the frolicked me this time. You know, frolicking. Lick, fro, ha-ha." He still didn't approve of that kind of joke. "Yes, of course," he said, and went on talking. "Well, what would you like for breakfast? Eggs?" "Yes, I guess so," I said happily. "Should I cook them?" "Oh, would you?" he asked, in very glad tones. Of course. We got along very well together. That was a typical morning conversation. I searched for a job for 3 months, and after a while my uncle would make little jokes like, "You haven't been getting very much action recently, like me, have you?" That wasn't a joke that was meant to be laughed at, but to be thought about, like anti-war jokes. This one went 2 ways. I needed action quickly because he was paying the bills for me, and he had action anyway in his job. He always said, "Action, action, soon, soon," which shook me up. One day I came home and he stopped me as I was going up the stairs. "I'm sorry," he said, "but I can't support you any longer. In fact, I think you'll have to support yourself. Even more so, I know it. I never could stand it anyway. I'll have nothing more to do with you." Woof! And he ran down the steps. He kept fit because of his job, and woofed again. 3 more days I wandered looking for a job until I realized that the next day was my birthday. I had no more friends, no present-giving charities, and no uncle that was about to give me anything. That night I went to bed a depressed, hopeless case. The next day, my birthday, I wandered again, and was still unsuccessful, without any food either. I wasn't hungry that day. Besides, I was saving what little money I had. That night I came to my apartment a very meek person. But I did do the procedure that my uncle taught me the first night I met him, before our dispute, if it can be called that. I went to the light switch, flicked it, and the light didn't go on, but it didn't matter, because I knew where the scissors were anyway, on the bed. I got them. I then took off my shoes, as he said, and went to the bed. I then took off my shoes, as he said, and went to the closet and opened the door. I stuck in my scissors and stabbed all around, hitting soft clothes. Suddenly I jabbed something harder than what I usually got and heard a groan. My feet, shoeless, were stepped on by hard shoes, and then a man fell into my arms. I grabbed a small lamp which was on the table, turned it on, and saw that it was my uncle. "Surprise! Happy birthday," he whispered, with hoarse bits of vocal popping in. I was shocked. Then I gasped when I saw blood pouring from out of his stomach. At that moment I saw the two tenants and the landlord come from under the bed, chair, and desk. One of them complained that the overhead light didn't come on, and then fainted when he saw my uncle. Another one was dazed, and the other one, who apparently knew what happened, handed me a greeting card which read, "I'm sorry, please forgive me." That was what the company wrote. This is what my uncle wrote. "I decided that I was being too cruel, so I have vowed to support you some more. I hid myself in the closet to provide some action, which you never had. The three men here are tenants and the landlord, but also my colleagues, some spies. I hope we will remain good friends for many years to come." The surprise party was obviously over. The next day I suddenly found a job. Fin. Here's what the story looks like. Freelance project, it says. That was our weekly writing assignment. And single-spaced, typed on the Olympia typewriter that my mother gave me when I was in 6th grade. Anyway, I wrote this in 7th grade. Thank you.